And I'm going to kick off with what I would say is probably the big noise at the beginning of 2025, and that is Nosferatu. So, Nosferatu, which I think the three of you have seen,
Yeah.
and I have not seen. So, Sharon, take us away and tell us about Nosferatu. I had a chance to see Nosferatu, but instead decided to see We Live in Time instead.
Okay, Nosferatu is a vampire story in the traditional sort of vein. It's inspired by another work of fiction, but they couldn't use the same name for legal reasons. So we happen to have a
the, the,
young
the,
man who is employed he's in Germany, one of the cantons there, and he's employed by a slightly dodgy employer to go to a castle in Transylvania, but it's never named. It's the Carpathian Mountains to visit a strange count there, Count Orlok, who wants to relocate to the said canton in Germany. And whilst the young man, not his name isn't Jonathan Harker, but it sounds like that. While he is in the Carpathian Mountains, he encounters this strange count, and odd things start happening. So he sort of has these memory lapses. He just feels like doesn't feel quite right in his body. He's becoming pale and wan and not very well. And he's had dire warnings from people who live by saying, oh, don't go there and watch his shadow, and all sorts of dire warnings happen. He doesn't really take much notice of these because he's a man who has a mission to fulfill for his employer because he wants to get ahead in the business. He has a young wife at home, and she has been plagued by nightmares since she was a young child. And one of these nightmares is she's not sure whether it's something she imagined or something it's just was real. But she had this recurring dream that when she was a young girl, she called out into the night for something to answer her, and something did. And ever since, it has plagued her dreams and her nightmares. And she feels that this presence is always there. And she hoped that her marriage would free her from this darkness in her past. But she's found that it has intensified. And when her husband's away, this presence has intensified yet again. So when he returns, a shadow of his former self, the sense of this impending doom and this approaching menace envelops her even more. And then we get to see what is behind this menace and the consequences of it when it is brought to this sort of fruition in this German town.
Cool. Very, very well done. Very well done. That of talking around it in a very legal sense, because this is a film that I think it was. Sean, you have to remind me. I think was it F.W. Murnau.
Oh, no, Murnau. Yeah, it was a Murnau.
Yeah, F.W. Murnau originally made
22, 23.
Yeah, originally made this Nosferatu, and it's like a classic of German cinema, made in the 20s. It's a silent movie. I think that the design of Nosferatu is iconic from the 20s version, where I've never seen that film. I know the design of Nosferatu. That's how
you know
iconic
the shadows. That
you know the shadow, you know the fingers, you know the ears, you know you know all that kind of stuff. And this began life because they wanted to make a Dracula movie, but they didn't have the rights to Dracula, to Bram Stoker's Dracula. So they essentially went, fine, we're just going to rip the story off and change everything. But it has become
I think, Toes, that the Bram Stoker estate tried to get all the copies destroyed because they did actually.
I can imagine so.
They tried because they said it's basically,
it's Dracula.
It's Dracula. It's Dracula.
As it is.
It's Dracula, but we've changed just about enough.
That's it really. But the thing that I really, really liked about it, have any of you ever guys seen the original?
No.
Right
there is the film that was inspired by the original, wasn't it, with William Dafoe in it?
Shadow of the Vampire.
Shadow of the Vampire. Yeah,
that's as close as I've seen to the actual.
Okay, so this is really, really good, and the characters in it, especially the mad one, is they look the spitting image. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays
not Van Helsing.
He's like the skeptical. He's like the skeptical with there's no such thing, you know what I mean? No such thing as demonic possession. It's just fits and all stuff like that. Looks identical with the tash and everything and the beard, identical to. And there's the bit there's a shot where the ship comes in, and he's sort of at the ship because he's like ship magnet, and it's just like taken from the 1920 movie. It's just like 1922 movie. It's just like, and the castle is more or less, with the street of the town, and it's all yeah. So I mean, it was really, really impressive.
Come on.
It's
Uh,
surprising,
And of
amazing.
course, in common with Shadow of the Vampire, it also has William Dafoe in it.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Oh, rather.
yes.
Yeah,
Poor,
So,
poor
that's
Willem
it.
Dafoe just going, Nosferatu, where? Quick, me!
There was a 76 or 79 version, I think, as well with Klaus Kinski, which I did see, and it was quite dull, that one. So
Okay, cool.
that,
So,
yeah,
so Sean, obviously, whenever we talk about historical movies, especially like historical war movies, you're all about the detail and everything like that.
yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
like on that level, almost as a historical artifact, this has made you happy. This film has made
Very,
you
very
happy.
much. What a great start to the year. Yeah,
Yeah.
really,
All
really,
right.
really.
Cool.
I'm really totally impressed with this
All
film.
right, Holly, fire away.
so well put together. It was atmospheric. It was beautifully done. Everything about it, the details, the scenery, all of it just hung together. It was a gorgeous film to watch. Though interestingly, well, we had some quite irritating people sitting behind us who at the end
Uh,
clearly didn't like it, and
gotta love
with
him.
combining expletives saying, what the did we just see? I'm like, did you not know what you were going to
Mhm.
watch? Because this is not an innovative concept.
Well, the thing about it, right, is directed by Robert Eggers. Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, he did The Northman, and he did The Lighthouse. And I personally think that he would be quite happy to hear that was the reaction that
Yes.
somebody had to watching
I
this
And
mean,
we
film.
I mean,
actually
I've actually liked all of those movies.
and we were actually talking afterwards about the fact that it is Willem Dafoe was very Willem Dafoe in it.
Oh
He,
yeah,
Yeah,
he
but
these
it
days
fits.
plays a fairly sort of variations on a theme character,
he's gotten to that
including
stage. Yeah,
in The Lighthouse.
yeah.
And we thought this was remarkably reminiscent in some ways stylistically, and also of
Poor things.
yes, thank you, that one.
Yes.
I mean, we were really, really impressed by it.
Oh, all right.
It was, but there were
Yeah.
other people like, don't see, it's the worst thing we've ever seen. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow,
Huh?
you must have a really
No.
restricted cinema viewing because I've
But
seen
Yeah.
some bad films and this is not one of them.
but that
I
but
must again. I'd agree with everyone that you said. So, yeah, the framing of the shot, the color palette, the costume, the silhouettes, even like that sort of stylized almost acting. Where they get that close up and the whole horror faces. Was just. I think it was just spot on. It was literally note perfect. I think in more or less in every regard. Um, yeah, the casting. They just had the right look. Even the local villagers you meet at the beginning of the film, where they're all of a type, aren't they? But it just worked.
I
Yeah, I
think
just thought it was a great film. I saw this with my two brothers and my nephew, and we were like the ball and row in the cinema. And we each of us sort of obviously came from a different place. One of my brothers doesn't like horror at all. The other one sort of was more sort of popular. My nephew sort of, but yeah, we all of us came out going, that was a good film. That was a good film.
I think it's
I just love
particularly
it.
of
It's like
film lovers.
perfect family movie outing. Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Well, it's a film lovers film as well
Yes.
because it's. I find the more films I see, and I was talking to my parents about this yesterday, that you start to appreciate more the subtleties of the making rather than just this is a really good story.
Yeah.
Wasn't this fun to watch? And it brought together all of the sort of
It's
details
okay.
you'd like to see.
It's okay, Holly. You can say we've been doing this podcast long enough, and the more films you see, the snobbier you get. That is what's happened to us.
But you also appreciate the detail of things more
Yeah.
because your
That is
head
code
in
for
space.
snobby. That is code for you get snobby.
Remember, I love a bad shark film. This must never be forgotten. So I will watch appalling films.
And if you like, we like the vampire trope, but it's interesting that how it's sort of we've had the sexy vampires, haven't we? We've had like the teen vampires, we've had the gory, all fangs and blood vampires, and this is just that nod to that where it all started, really. That sort of early. There's nothing sexy about Warlock,
That-
even though there's this sort of frisson with
Wow,
the
what's
main
quite
female character. There's nothing sexy about this vampire.
No,
It-
which is a
but
contrast to Dracula,
Yes, who uses magnetic eyes and all this, like, oh, look at them.
Yeah, but the question is, does he have a cloak?
No.
He does not have a cloak.
He has like
he has a long
sort
coat.
of...
He has one of those old-fashioned coat type things, which look like they got a cloak, but it's not a flappy cloak. It's like
yeah.
It's more like, you know how the hussars used to wear their coats over one shoulder with like a braid, where they used to like to sling it over their shoulder, and you had all
said
the
a couple of
frogging
words
on it.
that I'm going to be googling after this podcast. Yes, but yes.
Well, I think it was like that. It was like, you know how you get the because I think the Carpathians, like, where if you look at their uniforms, they have these great coats, or they have like a fitted jacket.
Yeah, that's what
and
I would
as a
say.
sign of like their sort of, you know, devil may care attitude, they'd often wear it but slung over one shoulder, and you could see the cut of it, the frogging that looked like a uniform, that sort of uniform jacket, sort of with a nod to those old sort of...
Oh, all right, cool. So how many stars would we give this?
Yeah,
I don't know. This is like the start of the year, isn't it? And I mean, I should really, by all accounts.
Yeah, but we know, Sean, we know we're in award season. So because of the weird thing and the award season and everything like that, a lot of these films, they'll come up in America to the end of the year. Here, they'll come out at the beginning of the year, where you might have forgotten about the end. So there will be very high rating stars. January should be a high rating month. So don't be shy.
Right.
Don't be shy.
So I'm going to go a really high 4 for this. I'm
Okay.
going to save the 5 for something that maybe will come in the year. But yeah, no, really high 4.
It sounds like in your heart, Sean, there's a 5.
Well, it is really, but
I think I'm going to go in actually with the 5, because I like to start with a perfect score, and then I will tend to reduce it by things that maybe niggle me, things that I think, okay, this didn't hit it for me. So I couldn't take anything away from it. I couldn't find that fault to say, actually, it was perfect, but for this. I can't find that, but for this thing in that film. So to me, it's going to be a 5.
So Sharon's persuaded me. Well done, Sharon. Thank you very much. You made me feel more confident.
Sure. Listen to your heart. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I'm going to do the same, because I was going to go with a 4 and say it was a really solid all-round, but actually I can't think of anything to fault it on. So it's got to be a 5, you're right.
Wow.
Okay.
Is that a first?
I think that's a first. That's the first film where we've had multiple people give it 5. Like, this is like across the board. There's no, okay, cool. So I'm gonna, my aim for the next week is to go watch Nosferatu and give it a 1. So